Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. As we come to you on this Saturday evening, as the dream comes to a bitter end in New York. I told you in the pregame today, this was going to be a very, very hard matchup tonight, in every way. You can look back on the series and you can uh, talk about Game One and what would have been if they had held the lead and not had one of the real colossal crashes in league history. Um, but when you dig that kind of hole and you're trying to bounce back from 3-1 down, it's going to be very, very difficult. Now, I told you that I thought Game 5 was more on Indiana than it was on anything the Knicks did. But I thought the Knicks tonight had things their way in the first half, except for two things. Indiana hit too many threes. And I told you the Knicks were going to have to make threes tonight, and they didn't. And that was where they got killed tonight, because Indiana went 17 of 33 for 51% from three. And the Knicks hit a couple of late cosmetic threes. But in the bulk of that game, the Knicks had 5 threes. Well, Indiana was hitting three after three after three, and that was the difference in the game. And as it is, the Knicks wound up being outscored by 24 points from three. Shamet came in and hit a couple of threes in the last minute, which were cosmetic. The bottom line is, though, the Knicks shot 28% for the game from three, and that's with a couple of makes late. They were shooting about 20% before those makes. That killed them. Too many turnovers. Again, too many turnovers from Brunson. And tonight, with Nesmith clearly, I talked about Nesmith not playing in Game 5. I did not realize that that indication of how few minutes he played in Game 5 meant that he had re-injured his ankle. We didn't learn that until right before the game tonight. So with that the case, they had to put Nembhard, who has had a rough series, on Brunson, and he did a superb job tonight on Brunson. He really did. He frustrated the heck out of Brunson. And if you're playing a big-time scorer like Brunson, you want to frustrate him. And Nembhard absolutely frustrated him. He scored 14 points. He had 8 assists. He had 6 steals. And he forced Brunson into way too many bad plays. And Brunson, who had a quiet game for him, had 5 turnovers again. He can't turn the ball over that many times. And the turnovers out front, he had 5. Bridges had 5. And those are absolute killers. But the difference in this series, when you look at it from start to finish, was the fact that the Knicks could not handle Indiana defensively, and their transition play was absolutely putrid. How many times tonight did the Knicks get beat back after a make? How many times tonight did Obi Toppin beat them down the floor, or Siakam beat them down the floor for makes and for easy baskets? It cannot happen. The Knicks floor balance, as Stan Van Gundy mentioned more than once, and if you're someone who's a marginal fan, floor balance means that when you are on offense, you must be able to balance your team so that you can get back on defense if they come with a quick move to the basket. The Knicks' ability to play transition defense or balance the floor was atrocious in this series. And again, their defensive woes were just enormous. Now, Haliburton had a weird game. Okay, he did very little for a while. He didn't play well. And then he got crazy late as the Knicks, in their woeful defensive sets, couldn't figure out what to do with him. And he was either getting passes for dunks or, little floater layups in the lane. And that allowed him to come up and have a big fourth quarter. But to me, let's be honest, this game was over before the fourth quarter started. This game ended in the third quarter. The Knicks were only down 4 as OG had a very good first half. When he scored that bucket before the half, the Knicks, despite what Siakam had done in the first half, despite the threes that had been hit by Indiana in the first half, the Knicks were only down 4 points. They had to come out and answer. Instead, they came out and they got down big. Right away, boom, 3. Boom, 3. 2 more open threes. Nesmith hit a 3. Okay, then Nembhard hit a 3. Then Bryant hit a couple of threes. And before you knew it, they were down 12 points. And they tried to chip away. And they had a couple of runs there. They had a couple of runs off Indiana mistakes and Indiana turnovers. Indiana wasn't perfect offensively tonight by any stretch. But throughout the entire series, and I don't care who they make the MVP from Indiana, whether it's Haliburton or Siakam. To me, the difference in this series was Siakam, because Siakam was impossible for the Knicks to contain in this series. He just was there game in, game out. You know, first game he had 17 points. Second game, he had 39 points. Third game, he had 17 points. Fourth game, he had 30 points. Last game, he did not have a great game, but he had 15 points, the only one in double figures of the starters. Then tonight, he goes out and has a 31-point performance. And in all those games, or almost every one of those games, he shot way over 500. He was a pain in the neck. He was a matchup nightmare for the Knicks throughout the entire series. They never matched up. And if I would have done one thing at one point, I would have given Achua a chance to play against Siakam and see if he matched up defensively. He never did that for any length of time because they had nobody. See, when Robinson played against Siakam, Siakam ran him. Couldn't play him with a smaller player. If you played him with a bigger player, he ran him. He killed him throughout the series. Absolutely killed him. He's a money player. He's already won a championship. He's probably the most underrated player in the league. We've talked about that before. And he continues to get the job done. You know, that the bottom line, this series was a winnable series if everything was done right. There was no real advantages in the series. The Knicks were better at some things. Indiana was better at other things. Indiana had a player that was impossible for the Knicks to guard, and the Knicks defensively had huge problems throughout, and they did not get great performances from people they needed great performances from, and they didn't get enough from the bench, although give Tibbs credit for going more to the bench and unleashing guys at times in this series. But the bottom line, Knicks had trouble matching up defensively. They had trouble handling the pace that Indiana played at, and Indiana hurt them in a variety of ways throughout the series and was able to take command when they had to take command tonight from three. I thought Indiana would score from three tonight. I thought you'd see a very different Indiana team. Indiana was not 100% tonight. They came away with a couple injuries. They've lost 2 or 3 players to injuries in the series, and clearly Nesmith was hurt. Nembhard stepped up and did a very good job this evening. Bridges had a miserable series, and let's be honest, his season was a bit of disappointment. There's no way around it. He had his moments in the Boston series, but he did not have a big year. I understand that there were other issues and somebody was going to have to subjugate the ego offensively, but more was expected of him, and I did not think they got what they should have gotten out of Bridges in this series. Now, Brunson scored. He's always going to score the way the Knicks play. That's all there is to it. Tonight, he had 19 points. He went 8-18 from the field. He didn't get to the foul line, which was a great job by Nembhard. He clearly got frustrated. He turned the ball over 5 times. And Indiana, again, was able to keep them at arm's length from about the 5-minute mark, except for a couple of flurries. From about the 5-minute mark in the third quarter, they were in a working margin the rest of the way and went on to a 125, 108 win. The pace was where Indiana wanted it. They spread the floor. When they moved the Knicks defense, they scored. When they got in the paint, they scored. And in the fourth quarter, when the Knicks needed stops, they couldn't get stops. They couldn't get stops. Indiana got basket after basket after basket. I thought Robinson did some very good things. He's a very useful player in the way they wanted to use him. But again, he had 6 points and 6 rebounds in the first quarter. He wound up with 8 points and 9 rebounds. There's a diminishing return from his minutes. He has to be used a certain way. Towns had some very good games. He had some not so good games. Tonight, you look at his numbers and you say 22 points, 14 rebounds. That's fine. Did not play well tonight. And his defense, especially coupled with Brunson's defensive deficiencies, is a huge problem. Now, when you fall short of the mark, and the Knicks were favored in the series, they lost in 6 games. They had home court advantage. They had a express. The way this year broke, they had an express to the final. They didn't get there. So there will be disappointment rather than elation. If you look at where the Knicks have been the last 20 years, this year was another building block, and you can look at it that way. But the question is now is, where do you go from here? Can you take this team as constructed? Clearly, they need additional bench help. We know that. We knew the bench was light all year. Clearly, they need to fill in some spots. We know that. That's for another day. But do they go make a big move? Do they think after 1 year that this experiment that they put together needs to be broken down? Do they think they need a different coach to go any farther? You can't say Tibbs did a bad job with this team. That would be unfair. That would be unfair to say what he's done with this franchise and the way he has personally improved individual players. You cannot say he has done a bad job. It's completely unfair. But there were expectations this year. And the question now isn't if Tibbs has done a good job. He has done a good job. The question now that the Brain Trust has to answer is, how do we get 6 games better in the postseason than we were this year? How do we get 6 games better? You know, Pat Riley always talked about that when a season ended, it was so painful because you had to go through the offseason. You had to go through training camp. You had to go through a grueling regular season. You had to hope the team came together, hope the team stayed healthy, and go a whole year to get back to the same exact spot to try and better what you failed to do this year. When you look at it in those terms, it's daunting. It's, from a basketball standpoint, depressing. The question with the Knicks now is, do they put the finishing touches on what they feel is something they can win with? Or do they look at it and say, we cannot play? We cannot win the whole thing, which is what obviously the goal is with the personnel we have. We know they need to get better off the bench, deeper off the bench, bigger off the bench, and obviously more explosive off the bench. We understand that. But is this a way, if you're going to keep this personnel, is this a team that Tibbs is comfortable with? You have to give a coach a team he's comfortable with. I always question whether he was comfortable with a team with the defensive deficiencies that this team had. Now, he did do some things that were necessary in this series. Put Robinson's minutes at a premium, put his presence at a premium. Check. Go to the bench and go to a deeper bench and utilize the bench better. Check. Do some things that he doesn't like to do, in terms of games. Was he more flexible in that regard? Yes. So, like I said, it's not a question of blame. It's a question of, is he the right man to finish the job, or has he taken you as far as he can take you? That is the question that you're answering now. This is not a referendum or a debate on whether Tibbs has done a good job. He has done a good job. It's a question of, can he finish the job? And can he coach the personnel that is on hand, if this is the hand that they wish to go forward with, or are there going to be wholesale changes in personnel and maybe on the bench? Clearly, the Knicks won't be satisfied with this. Clearly, they're going to rue what happened in game one. They're also going to they've already heard how they squandered an opportunity that won't be there going forward. That this was a year where things broke. The road broke the right way for the finals. It didn't break the right way for a championship, as you're going to see, as Indiana is an overwhelming underdog against Oklahoma City, and the Knicks would have had a very difficult time, as Indiana will, matching up with this Thunder team, which is so long and young and big and so good defensively. It's going to be a very, very hard team to beat, and that's why they are somewhere around a 6-1. We'll get an official tonight, but somewhere around 6-1 favorite to win the series. There were some positives. There were some negatives. We know what they are. I'm very disappointed in Bridges. I thought for the Knicks to win and get to the finals, I said at the start of the playoffs, I said at the start of the series, the bench and Bridges will have to lift their games. That Tibbs will have to believe in the bench, and he did that somewhat. And that Bridges would have to elevate his game to a level that clearly he has in his talents. It's there. He didn't show it. What he gave the Knicks this year was very disappointing. Very disappointing. So I think you can look at this season and look back on all the things that were positive. You can also look back on this season with a lot of regret because of the way things opened up for a trip to the final. Knicks fans won't be happy with what happened here. And obviously, when you dig yourself the kind of hole they did, you don't have any margin for error. And the Knicks had some deficiencies that they could not fill. They had some weaknesses they could not overcome. And as I told you this evening in the pregame, Indiana was going to come out a very different team than they were in Game 5. Now, they were a little more beat up than I realized they were, especially with Nesmith. And I thought Haliburton had a very, very shaky first 30 minutes or so of the game. He was there at the end, and Siakam was there when needed, as he was the entire series. He's proved himself a very, very underrated player in this league, and he's now going back to the biggest stage again, and he's already been there. And whatever Indiana accomplishes, he will not be the reason why they fall short. Now, as we said, it's a tough pill to swallow. Everyone was dreaming the dream. Everyone wanted this run to continue. Everyone has had a nice spring with this team. There's nothing better than the Garden when it's alive in late May or early June. And it's good that it's happened again. And you're going to want more. You're going to want more. Is this a championship team in its formation? I don't think so. I think there have to be changes made for it to become a team that could win the whole thing. I don't think this team, as constituted, will ever win the whole thing. Is it a good team? Yes. Is it a 50-win team? Yes. Is it a team that can go as deep as this? Yes. Is it a team that can win the whole thing? No, I don't think it is. And I think that clearly being the goal, then there needs to be changes made. Tonight, turnovers. Transition D. Too many threes. Add them up. Turnovers, transition D, threes, and you go home in 6. Now, one thing aside, Yankees have been riding real high. You know, they've been beaten up on some teams. They got through the Angel series. They've won 16 out of 20. And I was fascinated to see what would happen in LA. Now, last night, they obviously were up 5-2 with the best pitcher of baseball so far this year on the mound, and he didn't get the job done. Hey, he's human. Tonight, a little different story. As, let's be honest, after what happened with the World Series last year, the Yankees didn't need to come out here, blow a lead and get beat 8-5 last night, and then get beat to the tune of 18-2 tonight. So, the Yankees right now, in a very soft division, have a 5.5 game lead, despite losing 2 in a row. There's still 6 up in the loss column over a surging Tampa Bay team. Boston's been a disappointment. Other than the Tigers, the American League has been very good. We know that. Tigers, pretty good. Now, we'd like to see the Yankees, even though tomorrow night is not exactly a matchup that you're going to be thrilled about. Okay? You don't want to see the Yankees get beat 3 straight games in Dodger Stadium. And you want to see them, and this does not count Mr. Judge, who had 2 home runs tonight, hit a home run last night, and hit 2 home runs tonight, and had, I believe, and let me just make sure he didn't have more than 3 hits, but I think he had 3 hits tonight in that 18-2 debacle. I believe he had 3 hits. He had 3 for 4 and 2 home runs. But the Yankees got beat 18-2. So they get beat last night 8-5. They get beat 18-2. And tomorrow night, Yamamoto's on the mound with his flashy 1.97 ERA. Would like to see a little Yankee pride. The Mets are beating up on a Colorado team that is so bad. I watched Colorado today in the first inning. Soto came up with 2 on. I said, okay, let's see what happens. He walked. He struck out Alonso. This is a guy with the highest ERA in all of baseball on the mound. Struck out Alonso. Beatty, who's been playing really well, hits a deep fly that the center fielder, who's known to be a decent defensive player, a pretty good defensive player, completely turned a sac fly into a triple. The Mets got 4 runs in the first and went on to an easy win, and Soto got a home run. They'll go for the sweep tomorrow against the Colorado team that's won 3 times on the road this year, which is almost hard to even say. This is like a little league team, this Colorado team. So we know that. But the Yankees got beat tonight 18-2 on national television by a team that smacked them around in the World Series last year. Now, I don't care. And regular season, if the Yankees lose tomorrow, it isn't going to affect whether they go to the World Series this year and try to play the Dodgers again, or, it's not going to affect their, standing in the division or whether or not they make the playoffs, because we know they are. But how about a little pride tomorrow night? After getting whacked around last night and getting whacked around 18-2 tonight on national TV, how about a little toughness tomorrow from the rest of the guys? Would be nice. And maybe get a Dodger or 2 out along the way. 8-5 against a pitcher who had given up no runs all year. 18-2. You don't want to see them get spanked again tomorrow night. And I hated the Dodger uniforms tonight. Hated them. They have the best. Their home uniform is the single best uniform ever. I love their home uniform. I hated tonight's uniforms. Hated them. Just an aside to get your mind off basketball for a couple of minutes. Hey, I know you were dreaming of Game 7. I saw they had already printed the Game 7 hats. They had already made them. Right? They would have sold quite a few of those. Safdie's going to have to go back now and stop going crazy and, running the games and tweet me and pay attention to his family situation and also go make another movie. Chalamet's going to have to go back and make a movie too, because he's been running around with the Knicks every night. And the rest of you, hey, now you can go back to worrying about the Mets and Soto and worrying about the Yankees and worrying about the Jets and whether or not Fields can play quarterback and what the Giants are going to really do against the toughest schedule anybody's ever seen. Just wanted to get you back to reality. We'll see you tomorrow.